as your seam options. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think it looks right. If this pitch plays anything like the third Test match, obviously on the same square, so it makes a lot of sense. It looks like you could easily open the bowling with Jack Leach and Jimmy Anderson, which looks probably to be the option, and then they'll use Ben Stokes at some point through the day. But that looks like it's going to be the point of attack for England, and it's a much longer batting line. I know we spoke about the attacking options England would have with the pink ball, but with Jofra Archer at 8, probably that was a little bit too high and it left them quite vulnerable. But now with certainly Lawrence and Best back in, that batting lineup is a lot deeper. And as Sanjay's just said, this is a really important day for England. It's about getting it right. They've been beaten quite heavily in the last 2. Can they put on a big performance? It would be great for them and certainly the young players to leave this tour with some good memories. So this is a really important Test match for England. And if they can have a good first day, then it will set that up. But huge first day for England to get it right.
They've got in the specialist batsmen. I don't know how many other options they would have had. Rory Burns, the other top order batsman, belly. But is this strengthening the batting or simply extending the batting?
I think a bit of everything, to be honest with you. I think there obviously hasn't been a massive amount of top order runs, apart from Joe Root to hit that big innings out. So I think there'll be a little bit of concern. So it's a bit of a cautious view to get runs. They know that, again, if you don't get big first innings runs, you're not going to be in the game. So they have to try and find a way of getting 250 if this pitch is anything like. We're looking at that, the list of scores since that 500 in the first innings. They haven't got past 200 yet, and you're not going to win too many Test matches in the world, certainly in India, if you don't get past 200. So that would be a point of concern. So I can see a little bit of caution. And there's parts of what we've seen this winter. Dan Lawrence has played spin quite well, certainly in Sri Lanka. He's a good young player, so let's hope that he's learnt from the experiences he's had so far, and it'll be important to see actually how all the young players from the England side of how have they learnt from these experiences, and if it is a better pitch today and it's a surface that you can bat periods of time, let's see how they do. I hope it's a good day for England.
Sanjay, give me your thoughts on England's changes, especially leaving out one frontline bowler and bringing in a specialist batsman. What does it tell you?
I think it's good selection. I think it's a very sensible selection, because when you have a pitch that's likely to end up, as a turner, you need 2 spinners, which they didn't have in the last game. There won't be much, I think, in the first 1 hour. There'll be something for the English seam bowlers. So I like the fact that they have strengthened their batting, and extending the batting is with the hope that it will strengthen that. So I like the selection. Best had to come. It was a no-brainer. But I just hope he's learned from his experiences so far bowling on these pitches. And in the time that he's got outside the playing 11, I just hope he's working on his speed to bowl quickly like Akshar Patel does, or Moeen Ali did in that second Test. So if he's done that, their spin attack was a little more formidable, because India is beating them, hands down, on just the effectiveness of spin on these pitches.
All right. India have made a change of their own. Jasprit Bumrah was released from the squad. He's gone home. And they've made the change and brought back Mohammad Siraj, who has featured in this series. There was chit-chat on whether Umesh Yadav, with his experience and his excellent record in India in Test cricket in recent years, would outrank Siraj. Sanjay, that's a call that you welcome? Siraj ahead of Umesh?
I would have done the same, although I thought Virat Kohli might play Umesh Yadav, because he likes to play Umesh Yadav in home conditions, and considering his record. But I look at players sometimes as stocks, and Mohammad Siraj is a rising stock. So if there's an opportunity to invest in him with time, then and opportunities, then he's the man to back more than Umesh Yadav.
I'd love to say, does it really matter who the second seamer is, especially with the evidence of how the last Test went? But just that little comment you made at the top, Sanjay, and the fact that we're hearing from the experts at the ground on the pitch, and whether there's a little bit of moisture, there's a little bit of grass. Is this again just an illusion that the seamers could have something in it, or could they genuinely do? Could Siraj and Ishant actually have something to say in this first session?
There'll be a little more for the seam bowlers. When I say little more, I say all this in the context of Indian cricketing conditions, a little more. So you might just see from one end, and if I was hearing right, I think it is the Adani Pavilion end where you're batting. There's a little more for seam bowlers. That might just be an opportunity for the Indian seamers to make a mark in the first hour or so. But the inherent nature of the pitch doesn't change, and you can see there's still an endeavor to have turning pitches. And I guess you'll have another turning pitch, but nothing like the one that you had in that last day-night test match. So you'll see a little improved Turner this time round, is my guess.
All right, an improved Turner. I'm going to focus on that phrase as the next few days go along. But in all seriousness, Belly, I mean, you look at the scoreline and you think it's just 2-1, and England could easily just win this Test match and take away what would be an excellent series result. However, the thought going into this Test is completely different. You just feel at the in the aftermath of the last Test that India are just going to roll over and just run over England. And how do you respond from a Test like that? How do you still keep hope alive, given that this series is far from over?
Well, they have to believe. This is where it becomes, and the beauty of Test match cricket is it's not just technique and physical; it's mental as well. And this is a massive mental game for England. If they do go on and win this Test match, leaving India 2-2, I think would be a huge achievement. And they'd snap your hands off right now for that result. So they're going to have to shift some momentum. India are absolutely flying at the moment. They've played some brilliant cricket in the last two. I wouldn't be surprised to see Axar Patel again bowling at our two opening batters up front. And then rotating the seamers through the day. But it's a huge day. But this is where you're going to have to dig down the confidence that you've got to look back on from that first Test match, whether you're Don Sibley, Joe Root, who's been there many times. But they're going to have to dig deep now. And this becomes a mental battle. Same bowlers that have bowled them out, 2 games on the bounce now, same ground. Can they find something in this innings? Certainly today, the best part of the pitch to bat on. This is, like I said, a huge day. And it really does come down to a bit of a mental battle now. Can they get through that first hour? Can they get through their first 20 balls as a batsman and get in and try and make something count today? And if they can do that, then they can ask some questions. But it's going to take a mammoth effort. I think India are massive favourites going into this game. It's all there to do. But this is where the mental side of Test match cricket comes in big time.
Yes, this is obviously something that we hear so often when we discuss the mental side of the game. And I've got two batsmen who love discussing batting and technique. So let's discuss the mental side. Let's also discuss the batting side, shall we? You've got Crawley and Sibley. I'd love to talk about big players, but they come in a little later. Root comes in at 4, Stokes at 5, Bairstow still experienced at 3. What's the technical aspect that needs to be sorted out here? It looks like England have no answer to Axar Patel. So I'd like for both of you to dig in and tell me what they could have done in the last few days to change that. We'll discuss the batting side and then we'll come back to that mental side. So Belly, you could go first. What can England do to counter the technical deficiencies they've had against Axar Patel?
Well, I think one of the major things, and obviously you listen about the pink ball, they reckon that the lacquer really gathered pace, that straight ball, and they were getting done for pace. But they've got to find a way of certainly not getting dismissed with the straight delivery. If you get one that turns from middle stump and you nick it to slip, then you accept that's great bowling. But they've got to try and negate those LBW and bolds. That's going to be massively important. And how they rotate the strike against Axar Patel, I think he's really found a way of, certainly we look back on that first Test match, England was so good. Certainly Joe Root of rotating the strike and sweeping. And since then, they just haven't found a way of really getting on top of Axar Patel, whether it's with aggressive shots or rotating or even good defence. So there's some big battles for the right-hander. And then obviously there's that battle between Stokes and Ashwin that will happen later in the day or later in this innings. So there's a number of things they've just got to find out. They've talked a lot about not getting out to straight deliveries and accepting that if you get a big turning delivery and that gets you, then that's okay. But you can't defend both edges, and they're going to have to play that well. And that becomes, like I said, the defence to Axar Patel, but the rotating of strike. He really has had England really caught here, where they just don't quite know how to get off strike, but also how to score off them as well.
Sanjay?
The nemesis really was the straight ball, wasn't it? And the pink ball helped Axar Patel scores, gathered pace, as Ian Bell said, once it pitched. So the only change that they could make is have that bat down for the straight ball. And if the ball turns against the angle and hits the off stump, or he gets caught off the outside edge, so be it. But at least you're not a sitting duck to the leg before. Now you've got to be mindful and a bit understanding of the challenges for modern day batsmen, because in our time, a pitch like this and a bowler like Axar Patel, our main line of defense was the pad. So we would actually put the pad in line of the ball, and if the ball came straight on and it hit the pad, but we made sure we were well down the pitch. And even if the ball was going to hit the stumps and there used to be token appeal made, because players and bowlers stopped appealing when you're well down the pitch full stretch, even if the ball has hit you straight on the pad and you've sort of showed the umpire that you're trying to play a shot, you were never given out. But that option with Diaz, as Michael pointed out very well, that option is gone. And that has made a huge difference. And we have some stats on ESPN Cricinfo about how many leg befores we have more now spinners than in the past. So that is a problem that modern day batsmen have. To counter Akshar Patel, if I was batting in this era, my bat would be in line to play the straight ball, and if the ball sort of and leaves you, so be it, like batsmen do in swinging conditions, where they sort of keep their bat here and the ball moves away. You just keep your bat there and let it go and just smile about it. But they've got to get that bat down for the straight ball more than the turning ball.
Okay, now Akshar Patel, with an average of below 10 in his first 2 test matches, yes, albeit on helpful surfaces, has been remarkable. Now, I know it's easier said than done, but can you actually put him under pressure? He's never been under pressure in these 2 test matches. Can you actually take him on? Is it easier said than done, Sanjay?
I've never seen counter-attack because you can't defend well work in India. I've seen attacking innings on turning pitches, but they've been played by exceptional batsmen. I've seen Kevin Peterson play an attacking innings on a turner. But then you've got to have that kind of ability. I've never, ever seen a batsman, because he's struggling to survive defending with those fielders around, has started hitting out and has played a long innings and got 100 and saved the day for his team. That has never happened. So they've got to be comfortable in defense, and let's not be too disillusioned by England's batting, because this is a team that got 578 batting first in the start of the series. And just from what I've seen in the last few matches, I've seen a lot of visiting teams come to India, and you see teams, Australia as well, South Africa, New Zealand, where the batsmen really struggle with defense as well on turning pitches. What they had in the last test match was unfortunate. So that is something that they could just wipe out, delete from their hard disk, because they are, what I have seen from evidence of the last 3 matches, that they have been far better batsmen of spin than the one that have toured India in the recent past.
Fair enough. If you talk about players that are capable of counter-attacking with that defensive game, and you think there's Joe Root and there's Ben Stokes. Now, we know what Root's capable of. He does his thing. Stokes is the enigma, isn't he? He's someone you think has the game to possibly take on the spinners if he chooses to play that game. It doesn't look like he has answers to R. Ashwin. It doesn't look like he's managing to survive defending, even though he's capable of it. Is he your player that you'd say, we need you to step up now? You talk about the mental side of it, big player, test series still alive, not done much after that first innings. Is Stokes someone that you expect more from in this test?
There's no doubt he's such a huge player for England in all formats of the game. He has delivered over such a period of time, certainly when the team need it most, really, whether that's with the ball or the bat. So, yeah, they'll need a big test match from Ben Stokes. And it's a fascinating battle, isn't it? And you see that in test cricket when a bowler, certainly someone like Ashwin, who's so good to left-handers, how he's going to go about it. He's obviously, at the moment, tried to dig in. He's tried to use his defence. And we haven't quite seen him maybe cut loose like we did in the first test match. Maybe this game he might think a little bit more about being proactive. But it's easier said than done, isn't it? Ashwin's been outstanding. His record to left-handers in particular is incredible. And Sanjay's right. You're not going to score big runs on these pitches without a good defence and moving forward and back. And I think, I think Ben's tried to do the right thing, but Ashwin's just been all over him, really. So sometimes you've got to find a way as a batsman to try and put pressure back on to a bowler. So it'll be interesting to see how that battle does go in this test match. But there's no doubt at the moment Ashwin is on top in this series. So fascinating to see how we go and what his philosophy or what he's thinking about into this test match, whether he tries to be a little bit more aggressive, will be interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Also, I think the England batsmen are going to be helped slightly with the red ball.
Yes.
It goes a little soft. The last time the Indian spinners were really complaining about the quality of the SD test ball. So we'll have a look at how the seam is after 30, 40 overs. So there will be some respite or some kind of, comfort for England batsmen against spin. Akshar Patel will continue to be quite good because he's quick in the air, he's accurate, he's got this subtle variation. You can't take it straight from the turning ball. But Ashwin, with the pink ball, had a great ally in the hardness of the ball. When the ball goes soft, Ashwin becomes, a little more playable and, comfortable to bat against. So England could be hoping that happens with this red ball. So at least the Ashwin threat is blunted somewhat.
Yeah, we're back to the red ball. We're back to a 9:30 local time start, which is just under 7 minutes from now. So how soon can we see spin then? Sanjay, break it down for the dummies. You spent a lot of turn, a lot of wickets fell in that last test in between that afternoon to evening period. We now suddenly start back in the morning. Could there be a temptation to start spin too early? We're going to start normally now with the two seamers.
If you've got two seamers who can exploit, the pitch, I don't think there'll be anything in the air in India. There is nothing in the air, Ian, for seam bowlers to exploit. So if there is a little bit of moisture, which is likely to be because I'm told it's a cool morning there and on touch as well. The pitch seemed cool, and there is one end where clearly they've left a little more grass. So there is, I think, some effort made that this pitch holds. Together longer. So all this chat about the last test match pitch being good, I think somewhere people involved also felt that it could have maybe not crumbled as quickly. So there will be a little more hardness, and that could be exploited by the seam bowlers. Also, the fact that even on a good Indian pitch, a lot of teams have used the spinner in the first hour. In fact, I think Jiten Patel was used by New Zealand very early in a test match in Indore, because there is always a little bit of moisture where the ball can turn, with some bite. So double incentive for spinners. One is, of course, on a turner to get that hard ball. Plus, if there is moisture, Jack Leach is the ideal bowler to unleash very early.
Well, if there is seam coming up, Zach Crawley wouldn't mind it. He looked $1 million in that first innings. Well, it was a completely different test after the spinners came on. But it's nice to see Zach Crawley, who could hardly buy a run in Sri Lanka, come in mid-series and look like he's been hitting it for a while.
Yeah, no, he's a good young player. There's no doubt. He's nice on the eye. He's got some nice shots off front and back foot. I mean, again, if I was India, I know that I think the one thing that the two opening batters won't want is Axar Patel opening the bowling. So if I was India, I'd be straight away with him. And as you said, if there's a little bit of damp and it's a bit moisture, it might just grip as well for the spinner, as well as do a little bit more for the seamers. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Axar Patel. Definitely the England top order players prefer seam up front. And if they can get in and they get set before spin comes on, it's a little bit more comfortable. But in terms of Zach Crawley, yeah, he's a fine young player. And we've got some good young players. They just need to now learn from these experiences and the next sort of 12 months and use this experience to become a better player. But hopefully from England's point of view, he can start this test match like he started the last one. He looked in nice touch.
I found that very interesting, Sanjay. It's almost like forget the conditions, forget everything else. These guys are thinking a lot about Axar, but I'll just bring him on straight away. See what happens. See if there are some demons in the mind.
But you've got to, also make sure that you use your bowlers that you have at your disposal at best possible time where they can make an impression. It's when you look at spinners on this kind of pitches, you might be thinking, they can be brought on anytime, especially somebody like Axar, who doesn't need the ball to be hard to make an impression. If you've got Mohammad Siraj in your team, then you've got to use him with the new ball. He gets that ball to swing as well. So maybe a little bit of a spell from Ishant Sharma and Mohammad Siraj before you go to the spinners, just to have a look whether this ball is doing something or the pitch is doing something, because of the coolness in the air and because there is that one end. So maybe I would say a couple of overs of seam from both ends and then go on from there.
All right. Now we have a little more time. So I'd like to go back to one of England's selections. We didn't cover it because England have won the toss. They're batting first, and we're going to watch Axar and Ashwin, presumably, you think, in this first session. And all the chit-chat was about how England would look to counter them after what happened in the last test. But Dom Bess's return intrigues me a little bit as well. Ian, you've come to India. You've come with what you thought were two specialist spinners and Moeen Ali. Suddenly, Moeen Ali, of course, is not part of the plans after the second test. You don't seem to have the confidence of playing Dom Bess. I find that quite curious. And now you've brought him back in. I'm sure Dom Bess is also familiar with what the conversation in English cricket is around him. Take me through the managing of this spinner. There is this thought of he releases pressure. He's not good enough, perhaps, to keep one end up. At the other end, you've come to India. You need to play two spinners, and now Dom Bess finds himself in this position. He's got to play this test match to try and help England salvage the series.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible position to be in, isn't it, really? I think certainly with the rotation policy as well, I think if Moeen Ali hadn't gone home, he probably would have played the last test match and probably playing this test match. So there's obviously things that are out of control for maybe the people that are out there at the moment in terms of who's playing. But it's tough for Dom Bess. I mean, again, I think he's a young spinner. And as we know, I think as a cricketer, but generally as a spinner, you get better the older you get. And I think we'll see the best of Dom Bess when he does get to that 28 to 30 mark in age. He has to be quite resilient. There's no doubt he's going to have to dig deep. As we talked about the batters, it's a mental game now. He's going to have to use that resilience as well because, it's some strange messaging, isn't it? Where you're in, out. You've watched the last Test match where it's turning square. So it would be tough. And probably knowing that if Moeen was still there, then he probably would be playing as well. I think we've seen the best of Bess with some beautiful deliveries, one great delivery to Kohli, but also just allowing the pressure off too much for India. Too many loose balls where they can score freely on pitches which you don't want to be giving too many runs away. And when that's the difference between the quality of the Indian spinners is not just the wicket-taking balls, but the control that they've had. And I think England, certainly with Dom Bess, yes, there's some wicket-taking balls in there, but there's a lot of runs being leaked. And I think that's where the confidence and trust maybe from Joe Root and that England department wasn't quite there for Dom Bess. But let's hope there's a reaction. He sat on the sidelines. Maybe he's worked on a couple of things, get the pace right, and watch what Axar Patel and Ashwin have been doing and see if you can improve. I mean, that's the best way to do it. Watch the best players do it and add it into your game. So let's see how he goes.
All right, we'll maybe extend this conversation on Dom Bess closer to when England have ball in hand. For now, India and their seamers have the ball in hand. Ishant Sharma is going to kick things off in test number 101 for the Pacers. So we'll pick up this conversation at lunchtime. Thank you very much. Sanjay Manjrekar, Ian Bell, get your thoughts on ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. England have won the toss. They're going to have a bat. It's a big test match still this. Don't be swayed by the way it went for India in the last test. The series is still 2-1. England have won what could be an important toss. Let's hear the first couple of hours of play go.